I don't know from wherever you're watching in the US if you have an Ocean State job lot near you. It's basically like a big giant discount, rambly, random bargain store. You get weird stuff in there. But I always go there when I have time to myself so I can wander and pick things up that I think I need, like cleaning supplies, and they have the best snack department. But I succumbed to an impulse purchase at the register of what was billed on the wrapper as some sort of Madagascar dark chocolate, like 80% cacao or something crazy like that. And it promised me that you took a little bite and you savored it. You let it melt and then you savored the flavor. It was the worst chocolate bar I've ever tasted. Hey Booktube, it's Kim at Middle of the Bookmarch, and this is my Bookish week for Sunday, March 3rd. And the only reason I know that date so fast is Sunday, March 2nd is my husband's birthday. So yeah, I think that was the fastest on the draw I've ever come out with the date. So I have some books to talk to you about today. I finished a book and I DNF'd a book. And I have some stuff to talk to you about my reading in March. So I'm going to quickly tell you about the DNF. I tried for the second time to read Paradise by Toni Morrison. No, I don't like this book, and I wasn't going to force myself to read it because I want to read Toni Morrison's work so badly. She's a favorite author of mine, but this is not a favorite of her books. It has too many characters. It has so many sentences of different people doing nothing, and it's a very slow, rambly story that tries to build to a plot. And it's an interesting format because in the beginning of the book, it opens with a crime. And in the rest of the book, we read how the story builds up to that event. And that's really interesting to me. And I was hoping to read how she wrote that, how she created the plot, how she showed the reader how this event happened. But I could not stick with it because it gets very rambly, very character heavy, with very little development of the characters I think I've read a little over half, and I gave up for the second time. I reached about a half the first time as well. So that was a DNF for me. And I don't believe I will be trying again. There have been a few books over the years where I have put them down twice and then picked them up a third time. One was not that great. The other one was excellent. And I don't know how that happens. I don't even know why I would pick a book up for the third time. But I don't think I will with Paradise. And I finished a book with my in real life book group, The Critical Chicks. This has got to be one of the best American modern classics of all time. And it is a book I was assigned in high school. I loved it back then. But now, after going through life for the number of years that I have and having the life experience that I've had, I have so much more appreciation for this book. It is one of the best road novels ever written. It's The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. This is a book that made me cry. And if you are not a U.S. reader, if you are reading from another part of the world, and you're not sure about the context of this book, this is set in the Depression in Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl. And it is the story of the Joads, Joad, who are poverty-stricken, have lost the land that they've been farming on for generations. They decide, based on flyers that they've collected and word of mouth, that they are going to travel to California to find work and to find land of plenty, kind of like a paradise. And it is so striking. It is so poignant. It is rough and raw. What happens to this family? And if you are not familiar with this part of American history and you want to quickly read up on the Dust Bowl, the Depression, American migration to California in the 30s, it would definitely help if you want to read and understand this book or have a richer reading experience. This is just an amazing piece of American literature. The story begins because not just the Joad family, but most families around them, most farming families in Oklahoma, in the South during the Dust Bowl, are losing their land to banks and corporations. And the American Depression in the 30s was just inherently evil, what happened to poor people. And the way people died, the way people lost their land, their possessions, their money, their families, their people, it's just excruciating to read. And Steinbeck wrote this book based on his journalism activities. He was a journalist, and he actually was researching and doing stories into the American migrants who traveled to the West looking for work. They would do any type of work: ditch digging, fruit picking, cotton picking. They would do anything to earn pennies in a day in order to feed their families. And they knew they were going to have to travel around looking for work. So the Joad family is basically has their land stripped from them, and they have nowhere to go. And there are multiple members of this family. They are the worst poverty that I can read in American literature, in my opinion. They have nothing. They have nothing but dirty mattresses, a broken down car that needs constant repair, a broken down truck, the clothes on their back with a few extras, some lard, some beef jerky of some sort, salted pork, flour for biscuits, and they leave. And there's probably, there may have been almost 12 of them. But what happens to them along the way in this journey to California, what happens to them on the road, the people that they lose, the people that they encounter, the poverty and the starvation that they experience, it's just so painful to read. But Steinbeck's writing is brilliant. Every other chapter is a different type of writing. So every other chapter we read the story of the people and we read the dialogue. A lot of it is in dialect. So again, if you're a non-US reader, and actually for some US readers it's going to be a little confusing, but stick with it. So every other chapter is different. We have dialogue in one chapter with the accounts of the families, and then in the next chapter we have Steinbeck's artistic, brilliant, sparkling writing. It is gorgeous. And I can't say enough about this book. This has got to be one of my favorite books of all time. This is just a magnificent example of the best in American literature. It's so difficult to read. It is so sad. It is so bleak and harrowing, but the artistic brilliance of Steinbeck comes through on every page. I urge you to read this. I urge you to stick with it. If you choose to read it and you're not quite understanding it, please let me know. I would be happy to reread this if anybody wants to do a buddy read with this. If you want to do anybody wants to do a group read, let me know, because I would be happy to do that with you. I just urge you to read The Grapes of Wrath. So that's the one book I finished and the one book I DNF'd. Now, what am I talking about for the month of March? I am not a booktuber that often sets up TBRs for myself. I don't like it. For me, it's too restrictive on myself. I rebel against myself. And yeah, I've had things where I've had piles of possibilities, yada, yada, yada. It's just a way to fake out myself, to believe I'm actually making a choice. And the irony is that I did a whole couple of videos on the 24 books I want to read in 24. And I still have those books separated out in another shelf. And I am picking from those a little slowly. I never said I was going to read all 24 books, but I do want to try to read as many as I can. I have 12 fiction and 12 nonfiction. I also put out a video of why haven't I read these books yet? And I've actually added those books to that grouping. So I've been kind of intermittently going over to that shelf and saying, do I feel like reading any of these books right now? And yes, I have pulled a few off. Actually, Paradise was one of them, so I've checked this off the list. And if I remember correctly, this Grapes of Wrath was on that list too. So that's 2 books. I dog-ear my pages. Yes, I've just confessed to that unapologetically. So what am I doing in March? I'm not doing a TBR. I am slowing my reading down. I'm slowing my roll. And here's what I'm doing. I have 4 books that I know I am going to read and finish in March, but I am not going to pick up anything else along the way unless I desperately feel like it. And if I do, I will most likely pick shorter books. Why is that? Because all of these books are pretty long. I think, let's see, the shortest book is, I'm looking at 2 of them. 2 of them are mammoths, actually. And yeah, there's one book that's less than 400 pages. The other ones are over 400 pages. So how about if I show you these 4 books according to the length? Now let me see, which one did I just pick up that was the shortest? I think it is this one. It is. The first book I'm showing you is a buddy read that I have scheduled with Britta in the last half of March. We do a read-along of Irish women authors. We've been doing several of those. And we don't necessarily do one a month, but we, when we feel like it, one of us will contact the other one saying, hey, do you feel like reading another Irish women author this month? And so we have this one scheduled for the last half of March. And this is The Night Ship by Jess Kidd. Jess Kidd has quickly become one of my favorite contemporary authors. And she is an Irish author. The Night Ship is 385 pages. So that's not even that short of a book. It's almost, 400 pages. This is kind of a length of a book that I love. I love long books. I love mammoths. I love big books. I love them all. And this is actually a very good length of a book. And Jess Kidd is a great author. I really love her writing. The next book, according to length, this is 434 pages. And this is Still Life by A.S. Byatt. Judy Brown and I are reading the Frederica Potter Quartet, and this is the second one. We read The Virgin in the Garden last month, and we're going to be picking the second book up the first half of March. So I'm in process of this one. So I'm not going to tell you much about what this is about. It continues the story of Frederica Potter. And I love this book because there's a lot of pages, but the font is really big. It covers a lot of the pages, but it's a pretty good size. So I'm really looking forward to getting further into the second installment in Frederica Potter's story. Now, the last 2 are my mammoths. The next one I'm already reading, and this is my 3rd read of the 837-page Middlemarch by George Eliot. I am reading this and co-hosting with Classics and Company, and we have a multi-person read-along on that page. They have a Discord page, and I will include their link down below. But what have I got to say about this? My favorite book of all time, my favorite book ever, however you want to refer to it. So I am about a little over a third of the way through my 3rd read of Middlemarch, so 834 pages. And the next one is purely a book for my own pleasure because I thought that looks really good. I'm going to add it to my March reading because it is a mammoth. And this book is unlike any of the other books I just showed you. This is a true and solid mammoth. This has 1,112 pages. And this is Ash, A Secret History by Mary Gentle. This is actually, could be a bind-up or could be considered a bind-up of this. I don't remember if it's a duology or a trilogy. I don't remember. I don't care because it's one book about, it's fantasy. And I wouldn't call it high fantasy because it's kind of like historical fantasy, if that makes sense. A little bit of maybe historical fiction and fantasy. But I just got into this and I suspect that I will love this book. I cannot wait to get further into it. And that is the one book out of the 4 that I have that is not part of a buddy read or a read along. So these are the 4 books that I am reading for sure in March. Now, if I pick anything else up in March, it will be something short or something that I feel like I can't wait to get to. But I'm going to go easy on myself. And I'm actually really looking forward to March because I am excited, truly excited about all 4 of these books. So whether or not I have a lot to talk to you about on Sundays on my Bookish Week videos, I'll find something to talk about. You know I will. I will always have something to talk about. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to March, and I probably will read more than 4 books. I am going to fit in at least 2 audiobooks, so I'll talk to you about those as well. I'm actually going to start reading Milkman on audio when I start my new job on Monday. That's by Anna Burns. That was one of my favorite books of 2020, and again, another one of my favorite books of all time. It's going to be interesting how I feel about it on audio to see if it still holds up, if my opinions still hold up. So we'll see. That's it for me for today. Let me know what you think in the comments below about anything I talked about, any of the books I showed you, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, everybody.